Thanks so much for subscribing and for watching, everybody. We appreciate you being here every day to watch Fantasy Football Today. Please hit the subscribe button. Please tell your friends about this awesome podcast. Let's break down the AFC home games right now for Week 4. Let's get started with Fantasy Week 4. Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today. Adam, Jamie, and Heath with 8 mostly AFC home games. Had to balance it out a little bit. We'll be talking about the AFC home games, plus Pittsburgh at Green Bay and Kansas City and Philadelphia. And who are the Bucks? Who are the Bucks playing this week? My mind, yeah. A little bit of attention being put on that game. But you know which one I'm really looking forward to, fellas?
I know what the Bonanza is, and I'm going to pretend like hopefully the Bonanza is not going to happen.
I don't pick the Bonanza until Friday. I don't know.
It's got to be Cardinals, Rams, right?
I was assuming it would be Raiders, Chargers.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I was thinking with AFC home games. Let's see how legit the Raiders are. All right, this is pretty, and they're they get so many Monday night games, or at least every year they get a Week 1 Monday night game. This time, I'm actually excited to watch them in prime time. Derek Carr is one of the most interesting players in fantasy. He leads the NFL in passing yards through 3 games. Now, if you take away his overtime stats, he wouldn't. But All right, let's talk about players we love, Jamie. Who we firing up this week?
Well, I hope I don't ruin this guy, but Jalen Hurts is the start of the week. So I think you've seen kind of the floor each of the last 2 weeks based on his rushing production, 21 and 24 fantasy points. So I'm hoping that's the worst. The best is I still think yet to come. We saw a snippet of that in Week 1. I think we're going to see it again in Week 4. The projected total is 54.5, so I think they'll have to keep up with the Chiefs' offense. Garbage time will matter because they're a touchdown underdog at home, which is never a good sign. But yeah, the rushing is what is the important part here for him. And they struggled with the rushing quarterback already when Lamar Jackson went for 102 touchdowns. So hopefully Jalen Hurts does the same thing.
I don't know how much this matters to anybody, but the Chiefs, I think, gave up 7 rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks last year. This is something that they struggled with last year. They've got similar personnel, and they're giving up the most yards per play in the NFL. All right, so Jalen Hurts is the start of the week. Heath, who do you love this week?
I'm going to give you my full progression of how I was going to answer this question. So first, I thought, I've got DeAndre Swift at number 4, RB4 in PPR. I'll just say I talked about DeAndre Swift enough. I got Alexander Madison at RB5, but Dalvin Cook might play. I've got Sony Michel at RB10, but Darrell Henderson might play. So I'll say Chuba Hubbard. I expect that he will get 2/3 of the Christian McCaffrey role, and I've got him at RB11. I think he probably gets 12 to 14 carries, catches 5+ passes. I'm not totally sold this Dallas defense is very good, especially against running backs. I think Chuba gets into the end zone and is a number 1 running back.
Sony Michel, number 10, though?
If there's no Darrell Henderson, absolutely yes. You've got a favorite in a game that has a huge over-under, a guy that's getting all the running back touches against a defense that's giving up 5.5 yards per carry.
Okay.
Like it's everything you want in a running back matchup.
Yeah. Rams facing Arizona. And potential bonanza. I can't use Seattle or Minnesota. They were last week. So, yeah, that's probably going to be it. And I got it right last week, people. So, everyone just relax.
Yeah, don't tell Tyler Lockett that.
Nah, or Russell Wilson. But everyone else did great. Minnesota and Seattle. I had to once.
You believe that game didn't hit the over?
I can. Yeah. No,
that should be part of your bonanza. It's got to hit the over.
All right, I accept that. No, that's BS. Like that, if it had already really high over. So, I had to once again convince someone that I'm not a sorcerer. I don't know. I promise I'm not. All right. So those are players we like. Who do we avoid in Week 3? Week 4. You can also talk about Week 3, but who do we avoid in Week 4? Heath.
I would do much better at telling you who to avoid in Week 3. I'm pretty worried about Chase Claypool. Because I think Deontay Johnson's coming back. I think there's a decent chance that Juju's coming back as well. Claypool's targets really didn't explode until Juju went out of that game. It wasn't even with Deontay Johnson out that they exploded. And then this Packers pass defense should be pretty good. Ben looks completely washed up. I would like to avoid Chase Claypool if I can. He's a borderline number 3 wide receiver for me.
All right, Jamie, give me a sit.
Damian Harris. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Taking on the Bucks. His playing time was a problem last week because of pass protection, according to a report. And if you can't pass protect, sorry, you're not going to play when you're chasing points. And we know that they don't have a pass catching back that they trust. Clearly, they don't trust Damien Harris. So time to sit him this week.
All right. 60-second rankings dispute number 1 is Damien Harris.
Somebody likes him?
He's got him, 12th in non-PPR, but still 20th. What is this music? 23rd in full PPR, whereas he's not in the top 30 for Dave and Jamie. Heath?
This might be a 60-second rankings mover. I just first off, there's not a lot of running backs that I feel great about, and I tend to use a player's role over, especially at this point, over the full 3 weeks of the season and not just last week. So I kind of think there's an opportunity that Damien Harris catches a few more passes with James White gone. I still mostly expect him to dominate the carries, whatever carries there are in this game. I haven't projected the Patriots to do what the Cowboys did or what the Falcons did, throwing 75% of their offensive plays and just not is. I don't think having Mac Jones throw 50 passes against Tampa Bay is the way to stay in that game.
Oh, they're going to try and run. It's going to fail. Brady needs 68 yards to pass Drew Brees for the all-time passing record. So after 5 minutes in the game, when he breaks the record, their game script is out the window for the Patriots because they're down probably 14 points at that point. So I can't see Damien Harris having any success because he's not going to be involved in the passing game to a big extent. You're right, Heath. He'll probably have a bigger role. But to a larger extent, I doubt it because he may have the best hands of the running backs, but if you can't protect your quarterback, you're not going to be out there. So no, thank you.
Okay, so we'd all start Chuba Hubbard over Damien Harris.
Yeah.
What about James Robinson tonight?
No question.
I've got some question, but I've got Robinson 1 spot higher.
Okay. Okay, then. You know what? Why don't we stick with the 60-second rankings disputes, get into some more controversial disputable players. Mike Davis, how about him? He's 15th for Heath in PPR now. It's very close in non-PPR, but in full PPR, Heath's putting a little more weight into the catches. He's got him 15th. Jamie, you have Mike Davis 25th against Washington. Jamie, you get the first word on Mike Davis.
Yeah, and he's fine. He's an okay, number 2 running back flex play. There's just other players I think that are in a better spot than him. We haven't seen the opportunities to score touchdowns, and when we have, it's gone to Cordero Patterson. Patterson's got a significant role in this offense. He's doing as good a job, if not better, catching the ball right now than Mike Davis is. So I don't have a problem starting Mike Davis, but I don't think he's a slam dunk top 15 caliber player at this point by any stretch.
Yeah, it's just all about the volume in the passing game. He's got a 16% target share. He has almost as many targets this season as Kyle Pitts. Matt Ryan has no faith in his offensive line. He won't wait in the pocket to throw the ball deep. Everything's close to the line of scrimmage, and that has really benefited Mike Davis. And Davis actually ran the ball a little bit better last week than he had early in the year. That was encouraging to me because I think it at least hold on to his role with more carries than Cordero Patterson. And one of the biggest surprises for me, and I've just kind of almost accepted at this point, maybe they'll prove us wrong in week 4. The Washington defense is not any good.
No, I feel like their run defense has been all right. I haven't previewed that game yet. That one's tomorrow, but
their run defense has been good. Eckler struggled in week 1, but who knows what that was a byproduct of. Week 2 was
Giant.
Saquon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Saquon had the 41-yard run last week. I mean, you saw what Buffalo did.
Yeah. I mean, they scored touchdowns. Let's see. Football team. What a weird thing. They're giving up 3.76 yards per carry to running backs.
Yeah, what did Moss have? 13 for 60?
Who?
Zach Moss, 13 for 60.
Yeah, I don't know. They've been solid against the run. They've been terrible against the pass so far. But we'll see if Matt Ryan can take advantage of that. How about Cole Beasley? Not ranked for Dave and Jamie. That's outside the top 48 in non-PPR. Around 40th in full PPR. Number 2 receiver in PPR for Heath against Houston. Jamie, why so low on Cole Beasley?
Game script. I just don't know how much he'll be needed. And you can make a case that was the same thing last week as well. But they may have this game wrapped up in the third quarter. Just how things go for the Texans and how well the Bills are playing. So I don't have a problem starting Beasley in PPR, but there are just a lot of other players I think are better.
The game script thing, I would normally be exactly what I would be saying in this situation. I just don't think the Buffalo Bills care at all. They've thrown 38 passes 76 passes the past 2 weeks. They've won those games by a combined 57 points.
Right. Yeah. And I even look back at last year. They only had 3 blowout wins last year. They were weeks 15, 16, and 17. They're facing Houston, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Bills against Houston. And they threw a lot, really, in those games for the most part. I mean, Josh Allen played only a half in week 17. He threw like 25 passes or something. So they throw. But Beasley, he's had 2 pretty solid PPR games, 1 dud. And
then 1 dud was a 35-0 blowout.
Yeah, but last week was a 21-point blowout or something like that, and he had a big game. He's a tough one. You know, they're not going to give you 3 great receivers every week. But, yeah, Heath, you have faith in him.
Well, yes, again, and this will matter probably more to mine, but I think like his targets versus Emmanuel Sanders' big plays, I'm probably going to rank Beasley higher than Sanders most weeks. And there's going to be some weeks where Sanders' big plays make him a lot better play that week. But I've got Beasley at 22. I've got Sanders, I think, at 35 or 40. One of those guys, I think, will be a number 2 wide receiver this week. I don't know that we'll be very good at guessing which one.
It's one of those things where, you know, we don't do half PPR rankings on our site. So, you know, we're speaking to very, you know, the two sides, the 2 extremes. His roster percentage is still only 74%. You know, so people still don't even roster him enough that, you know, it's puzzling because he's still giving you production even in non-PPR leagues, but you just don't know which guy you're going to get on a week-to-week basis, and that's the hard part with Cole Beasley.
If you want the poor man's version of Cole Beasley, Hunter Renfrow is rostered in 35% of leagues. That's up.
And I think I've got him like wide receiver 35. So maybe I just like those guys.
Yeah. All right. One more. We'll go back to 60 seconds here. Mike Gesicki, 13th for Jamie in non-PPR, 11th in full PPR. Similar to where Dave has him. Dave's slightly lower, but Heath doesn't have Mike Gesicki in his top 20 against the Colts coming off that big game. Heath, why so low on Mike Gesicki?
Because prior to week 3, he had 3 catches for 41 yards on the season, and 33% of his targets came in the 4th quarter and overtime of that game against the Raiders. I just don't necessarily believe it now. Will Fuller missed practice on Wednesday. If Will Fuller didn't play, and I know he was better in the game Will Fuller played, but if Will Fuller didn't play, I would boost Gesicki up a little bit, but I've got a bit of a target crunch. And I don't think there's going to be a 300-yard passing game with Jacoby Brissett, although it's a revenge game, so maybe that would be fun. I just don't have enough volume for him, and it was really just 1 game.
Jamie, top 12 for...
Yeah, it's the only game that Jacoby Brissett has started so far. So, you know, the 2.5 games that Tua Tagovailoa played, maybe that's the problem for Mike Gesicki, is that Brissett is leaning on Gesicki more so than Tua is. And to Heath's point about Fuller getting hurt, Fuller got hurt in the overtime period, you know, so that factors in, I think, a little bit to maybe when Gesicki's targets spiked. It's a tight end that has the 2nd most targets of any tight end in a game this season. So once we get past really like the top 10 guys, I'll take a dart throw on that as opposed to, you know, hoping for a touchdown here, hoping for a touchdown there. So, you know, if the connection is strong between those guys, I'll buy into it as a low end starter.
Jamie said touchdown there. All right. Does it matter to you that Brissett basically played 2 full games, right? I mean, he played almost the entire game in week 2.
Yeah, but that Buffalo game was an absolute disaster all across the board. The offensive line was a more of a mess than maybe it ever will be, or at least hopefully for any of the fantasy assets for the Dolphins. And it was a much better defense. This defense isn't very good.
Yeah, the Colts have been horrible so far this year. One of the worst defenses in football. All season long, we are playing the Fantasy Football Today Start Sit Challenge. You can go to This is really cool. Please do this. CBSSports.com/start-sit to play. How fun is this? Which player will score more fantasy points this week? That's all it is. And you just select out of 2 players. 10 starter sit questions. You win a customized Trophy Smack Championship belt with your name engraved. And the overall winner for the season wins $1,000 and a guest appearance on the podcast. All right, one question we have this week. Brandon Ayuk versus Kenny Golladay. Brandon Ayuk against Seattle or Golladay at New Orleans. Who do you guys like better?
Golladay, I guess.
I have Galladay ranked higher right now, but I'm gonna change that. I'd rather take a chance on Ayuk in that matchup.
I'm not sure either of them are currently in my top 48 at wide receiver.
No Shepard or Slayton as of now.
He's also still hurt though.
Galladay's got to get. Yeah, he played about 70% of the snaps. Had just an incredible day, right? All right, so it's a real interesting one. Please go to cbssports.com/start-sit to play. Hey, real quick, I'm going to take a quick break from start or sit and just a little stat here. Tell me if it matters to you. The two players who lead the NFL in yards per target are Quez Watkins and Bryan Edwards. Now, Watkins has caught all 7 of his targets for 26.6 yards per target. Edwards, 13 targets, and he's at 16.2 yards per target. Does this matter at all? Maybe thinking, hey, maybe there's something here. Deep sleeper kind of players. Eagles, Quez Watkins. I don't know if we can call Bryan Edwards quite a deep sleeper, but maybe he's just scratching the surface, I guess is what I'm getting at. Heath, does this matter to you this early in the season?
Quick quiz, Adam. What is Quez Watkins' yard per reception?
It's the same as his yards per
yeah, it doesn't at this early in the season on 7 and 13 targets. It really doesn't. Like, I could understand why somebody would be excited about Bryan Edwards, but Henry Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow, I think, and Darren Waller are all still going to get more targets than him. He looks like it's easy to watch Bryan Edwards play and say, man, I know why in training camp they were raving.
Right, but that's the thing. I mean, he's doing great with his targets. Maybe there's more to it. He does pass the eye test.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the hey real quick. Injuries, news, and notes. There are a lot of them. Tonight, the Bengals are going to be without safety Jesse Bates and probably cornerback Chidobe Awuzie. Jamie, does that change anything for you in terms of starting Marvin Jones or DJ Chark or Shenault?
No, I think Jones is still a high-end number 3 receiver. Chark is a number 3 receiver. Shenault's a number 4 receiver. Better in PPR than non-PPR, but I still don't trust this Jaguars offensive line. I don't trust the Jaguars offense. I don't trust Trevor Lawrence.
T. Higgins is out with a shoulder injury. When we looked at the game yesterday, we had done it assuming T. Higgins would be out. Dalvin Cook limited in practice. Andy Dalton could start this week. Nick Foles could start this week. Justin Fields could start this week. That game will break down tomorrow. Bears and Lions. Marlon Mack, I forgot to mention this on the show. So anybody interested in stashing Marlon Mack as he could be on a new team soon?
Deep Dynasty League, I think it's not a bad idea if he was dropped just to see. 14-team league, 16-team league, if you have a roster spot to play with. I would put him probably in the same category, a little lesser just because at least you know where this guy's playing, but like behind like a Jeff Wilson. So if like those are the two I'm deciding between if I don't have an IR spot, I'd rather have Wilson. But I mean, if Mack ends up in the right situation, he could be an injury away from, starting role, but who knows what he's capable of doing at this point in his career.
Yeah, I really want to see him do well so Cam Akers dynasty managers can feel more confident, right? Because we don't have a lot of running backs who have recovered from an Achilles injury, and maybe we may not really see anything from Marlon Mack this year, but hopefully he goes out there somewhere and performs. James White likely out for the season. Did you guys pick up any Patriots running backs on waivers?
No.
I don't think so. I haven't seen all of them processed through. I may have got JJ Taylor somewhere, but for the most part, I just avoided it.
Okay. They may bring in somebody else. I mean, they're working out every running back that's available at this point. That's what it seemed like. So this may be see what we have this week and then reevaluate it after the game.
Kind of surprised they haven't brought Adrian Peterson in yet.
Duke Johnson, I mean, that could make a lot of sense for them.
Yeah,
that passing downs back.
I don't know what happened to him. I don't know how he's like nobody wants him.
Nobody picked up Brandon Bolden in this league, huh? All right. Sorry, looking at waivers. Oh, okay. Gronk, Gio Bernard, and Jason Pierre-Paul all missed practice. We expect Gronk to play considering he came back from the injury last week. Julio Jones and A.J. Brown missed practice. Before we get to this game, it's the last game we're going to preview. Are there any Titans wide receivers that you want to start or even consider starting this week at the Jets?
You got to be in a deep league, but Nick Westbrook would be the preferred choice just based on his target opportunity from a week ago. So, but it's got to be a desperate situation.
Josh Reynolds was inactive last week. They could obviously make him active. Nick Westbrook, if you can't find him, I think he is Nick Westbrook in our database, but it's Nick Westbrook Akina It's something like IKHINE.
E.
I don't
Yeah,
E.
nailed it.
Cool.
I had to pronounce that at halftime last week, and I was like, yeah, Pete, what's his last name?
Eli Mitchell practice. Darrell Henderson, they seem optimistic that Henderson is going to play this week. Jamison Crowder expected to play. Marquez Valdes-Scantling missed practice. Slayton and Shepard missed practice. Cleveland's got some injuries on their offensive line. Jedrick Wills and J.C. Treader, left tackle and center, they both missed practice. Missing practice on Wednesday is not a huge alarm, I guess. What the hell am I saying? Not all that worrying.
Doesn't matter, probably.
Not yet.
For veterans.
Yeah, exactly. So let me see the ones that do matter. Well, A.J. Terrell is back for the Falcons, their cornerback. Gerald Everett is on the reserve COVID list.
Will Dissly could be interesting.
Okay. Baltimore's getting a little healthier on defense. George Kittle has a calf injury, but is expected to play. All right. Right now, the Steelers wide receivers. Heath, you kind of made a reference to this yesterday. Are you expecting all three of them?
We are only ranking Claypool right now. I would guess we'll be ranking Deontay Johnson pretty quick soon. But I kind of think the way Tomlin talked, it sounds like Juju may play as well. But I mean, right now we're only ranking Claypool.
Okay. Will Fuller missed practice with chest and elbow injuries. Anthony Barr, Minnesota linebacker. He hasn't played yet. He was limited in practice. Remember, I've been talking about Nick Vigil and IDP. He's been okay. Had one huge game. I think he probably goes away. I honestly don't know their depth chart that well. But Anthony Barr is someone you could consider picking up. He's been a great linebacker in his day. Odell Beckham was limited with a shoulder injury. Jets safety Marcus May. The Jets have given up one passing touchdown this year. Fewest in the NFL. Marcus May out 3 to 4 weeks with a sprained ankle. All right, here's a question. Curtis Samuel, Rashad Bateman, Dwayne Eskridge, John Ross, who I don't know if we should completely overlook him with the Giants situation.
He does play for the Giants.
Yeah, that's true, but he's a wide receiver. They're all off IR. Curtis Samuel, Rashad Bateman, John Ross, Dwayne Eskridge. They're off IR, but that doesn't mean that they're going to play this week. So what do you do with these players in IR spots? It's like they're off IR, but they've got this window to be activated now. They may not even be like, do fantasy managers need to take these players off their IR spots?
It really depends. Like, there is a wide range of how commissioners are handling these IR spots. If you have enforced that a player must be on IR or PUP or COVID to be in one of those spots, then yes, I think they should have to come out of those spots because they're not currently on that any longer. But there are plenty of leagues where the IR spots have basically just been guys who have an injury tag next to their name, or maybe even don't.
Yeah, that bothers me. Yeah, no, not that, but guys who are on IR, like Curtis Samuel, you had him in an IR spot. Now he's off IR, but he's not necessarily going to be activated this week. We should have to put him on our roster.
It just depends. Like, I think, like, I looked yesterday because I have Rashad Bateman in a few leagues, and I try to police myself as much as I can. But you know, sometimes when you play in all these leagues, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm looking at the league that Heath commissions, our dynasty league right now. Curtis Samuel is still on IR in our database. So as long as they still have the IR tag, you're fine. You know, so they may be activated off IR, the procedural move, but that just opens the window for them to practice.
Right. I guess I don't know how it would look in the league. I figured if they were off IR, they wouldn't have the IR designation anymore. How about Rashad Bateman? Does he have it? He has it?
The window to practice is open.
Yeah, I know. But what about in our leagues? Is Rashad Bateman?
It should be the same thing.
Okay.
Yes, it's still the same thing. IR.
That then. All right. Well, that's a relief. Jamie was very cagey yesterday. I asked him if he was okay with me putting James White on IR instead of dropping. And he wouldn't really give me a straight answer. It was really frustrating. He just called me a cheater.
I was in the middle of speaking of being called a cheater. So I was in the middle of my son's baseball game, and we had one of those umpires who, like, literally, if you remember Naked Gun, this is exactly how, like, every strike. I mean, these are 9 through 12-year-olds. Every strike, like, I mean, he's making it. He's making it all about himself. And so I usually stand when I'm not coaching one of the bases. I usually stand like right inside the gate, and a lot of times, like, I'll have the gate like cracked open, not all the way open, but like cracked open. Especially like when my son hits, like I'll try to record him so that his mom could watch. And like 3 times. He's like, close the gate, close. I'm like, okay, I'll close the gate. And then in the middle of like, kid threw a pitch, he comes walking over. If the gate's not closed and there's a ball that hits the gate, I'm calling your kid out, and then I'm ejecting you and I'm throwing you out for aiding and abetting.
No.
I was like, aiding and abetting? What? And so then the other coaches were giving me a hard time, like, you got to go on the other end of the bench. Get out of here.
Oh my gosh. Wow, what a jerk.
It was so funny. And so you're texting me in the middle of that while I was going on. And they're like, hey, can I stash James White on IR? We know he's going to be on IR. Can I just get away with it? So I said to him, what would you do as a commissioner?
You said nothing, but I said, I know he's likely out for the year. I could probably drop him. Do you have any issues with me putting James White on IR? He's not officially there yet. Jamie just writes, yeah, cheater. I wrote, for real? Jamie says, if you didn't say anything, I wouldn't have noticed. And I said, he's going to go on IR, obviously. What am I supposed to do with that? I'm honestly not sure what you're telling me here. And Jamie says, what would you do as commish? And I wrote, I'd be fine with it. I know it's just procedural. There's no way he's not going on IR. Jamie writes, what if they cut him? Like, just answer the damn question.
He said, yeah, cheater. You just give him the little, you can hold that your finger down on it and give him the little thumbs up. Cool. You don't have to say anything else. He said, yeah.
All right, fine. That works. Let's get to the games. Here we go. Las Vegas at the Chargers. Did I tell you I was interested in this one? Stat of the game. The Chargers, 26th against running backs. They are allowing 5.46 yards per carry to running backs. That is the most in the NFL. They have arguably the worst run defense, I guess you could say. So, Jacobs, if he plays, would you start him? Barber, if Jacobs doesn't play, would you start him? Jamie, Vegas running backs.
We're going to find out today, Thursday, on Jacobs' status because it's the first day of practice for them since it's the Monday night game. So my concern with Jacobs would be is it now a 3-headed backfield? Because John Gruden seems to love him some Peyton Barber. And will they, use all 3 backs? I hope not for Jacobs' sake. If Jacobs is fine and practicing in full, I think he's a number 2 running back. I would take the chance on that. Like you said, the matchup's good. The last time we saw him, at least he found the end zone. He was hobbling around. The risk of playing him is clearly if he's going to go out there and re-injures himself, if he's not 100% just trying to play. So I would stay far away from Peyton Barber if Jacobs is active and ready to go. If Jacobs is out, then I think Barber is a borderline number 2 running back in non-PPR and a flex in PPR.
And I'm actually a little bit worried about Kenyon Drake because I really would have kind of liked him in this game. If he only gets 5 carries but 5 catches, that's fine in this matchup. But I'm not sure how much he's going to play. They were talking about how he missed a pass blocking assignment, and they played Peyton Barber on 3rd downs.
Yeah, he's had around 10, 11 PPR fantasy points in all 3 games. So he's giving you a nice floor, Kenyon Drake. The Chargers defense, it's kind of like the Cowboys defense. They give up yards, not great in yards per play, but they are forcing turnovers. 6 turnovers in 3 games. Asante Samuel, rookie cornerback, he has 2 interceptions. Yeah, go ahead.
And I would say, and this could be, I might be wrong on one of these teams, but if a team is giving up a ton of yards through the first 3 weeks of the season, but they're not giving up points because they're getting turnovers, I'm going to assume they're probably bad.
Oh, yeah, no, I completely agree. And the Raiders, 6th in scoring, 1st in yards, 1st in plays, 8th in yards per play, 2nd in pass attempts in the NFL. So let's talk about Derek Carr. I actually want to get your thoughts on him, not just in this game, but season long. Is he legit? Well, first of all, he's the number 9 quarterback in 4-point, number 7 in 6-point.
What would he be if you only count his 4 quarters?
you know, I have that.
Yes,
he'd be about 12th. He'd be 12th in 4-point and 10th in 6-point. Still ahead of Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott. But no, he does.
And Aaron Rodgers.
He has 186 yards and a touchdown and an interception in overtime. Something like 186. Yeah, but like the yards per attempt has been phenomenal for 10 games now. It's 8.5 over his last 10 games. He's throwing a lot more. That's basically what it comes down to here. So you guys have him as a borderline, like around 12th. But is he legit? I mean, is he? Yeah, I'll just stop it at that. Heath, is Derek Carr legit?
I have Derek Carr ranked ahead of Aaron Rodgers this week, and I'm probably going to leave it that way until it changes. I think he's legit in the same range as where we had Tannehill and Stafford, and Stafford's moved up a little bit out of that range. But Cousins and Carr both have just moved into that Rodgers range where it's a low end number one quarterback, and you're probably starting them most weeks.
I think what stands out there is that you're calling Aaron Rodgers a low end number one. That's how you feel?
That's how we had it ranked at the beginning of the year. QB 10, QB 9.
But like so much better than Derek Carr.
Well, but Derek Carr is the one who's moved, is my point.
Right.
Cousins is the one who's moved.
Yeah. All right. Jamie.
Well, and the other thing we don't like, the thing that would change that is Carr going to continue throwing 5 to 7 more passes than Rodgers every week?
Yeah, Rodgers' pass attempts are down even from last year when they weren't very high. Okay, so Carr is 12th for Jamie, 13th for Dave, 10th for Heath. Jamie, you want to give your quick thoughts on Carr?
He's playing great. I mean, you go back to the last 4 games of last season too that he started and finished. So it's 24 or more points in 7 straight games. And he's got full command of this offense. The run game I still think is suspect, despite what Peyton Barber did last week. It's the only thing that I'm a little curious about this week is this defense going to be able to contain the receivers? Carr's spreading the ball around so much that it's hard to say they're going to, negate one guy. But this is a good secondary that has, done a nice job on some pretty good receivers already. Will they do the same thing to Ruggs and to Renfro? But then he has Waller and Edwards and whatever else he's going to cobble together, Zay Jones, whoever, to still get the job done. So I'll buy into what he's been doing now. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I think it's good enough to trust.
Well, I think Darren Waller managers want another big game, and maybe this will be it. He had a huge game in week 1. He's been a little disappointing in weeks 2 and 3. But you kind of mentioned how the Chargers have been very good against wide receivers, 3rd fewest fantasy points. They've faced McLaurin. They've faced Dallas. They've faced Tyreek Hill. And no wide receiver is more than 81 yards. Tyreek Hill, McLaurin, Cooper, 62 or fewer yards. So are the Raiders wide receivers sits this week? And they don't give up big plays. 3rd fewest amount of 20-plus yard pass plays, only 1 pass play of 40 yards allowed. It's only 3 games, but so far so good. Are we sitting the Raiders wide receivers this week?
That's the thing. And this is where I struggle with this is like, I think Carr is worth buying into, but I don't know which receivers aside from Waller make plays for him because like you said, they've done a nice job. The 81 yards you're referencing is CeeDee Lamb. He had the 8 for 81. I don't know, though, how much Amari Cooper's rib injury factors into that because that was the game where I guess it flared up and, wasn't, he said he got hurt in week 1, but, week 2, only 5 targets in that game. So how much of it was health for him? This offense, it's clearly not more diverse than the Chiefs, but it's not far off. And so, if they make with just not as high end players, but if they make the concerted effort to take away Ruggs, does that open up more opportunities for Edwards? Does that open up more opportunities for Renfro? But they've done a nice job against slot receivers too. So I just don't think it's a slam dunk across the board for these receivers, which is why if there is a reason to pull back on Carr, that's the reason.
Yeah, I think I have Renfro ranked the highest in PPR, but none of them are it's just you're starting them because you don't have better options, not you want to start them.
Yeah, I think one last thing here is that when you look at Dallas and Kansas City in particular, they ran all over the Chargers, right? I mean, Zeke, Pollard, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 100 yards. So you didn't get a lot of pass attempts from Dak. You got pass attempts from Mahomes, but I just don't know that the Raiders have that kind of running game. So yeah, that might help Carr too. But this might end up being a bad, a below average matchup for quarterbacks if their run defense is so bad all year. Anyway, start Waller, start Herbert. He's 7th for Jamie and Dave. He's 4th for Heath. Eckler's a start. The wide receivers are a start. What about Jared Cook? Heath, start or sit Jared Cook?
I wouldn't begrudge anyone having to start Jared Cook. I don't think he's a good start, but I don't think he's a bad start. He's just in that range with Tyler Conklin, with probably Dalton Schultz, with Dallas Goedert. If I had Jared Cook on my team entering this week, I probably wasn't making a waiver ad to start someone over him.
I know Heath would take Cook over Gesicki. Jamie, you were higher on Gesicki. Who would you rather have?
I'd rather have Cook.
Okay. So we'll call Cook a low-end starter. We will take a break.
It feels like Cook has just been unlucky.
Yeah, he had the touchdown call back in week 2. He had a good game in week 1. And we'll see. All right, we'll take a quick break here. When we come back, Tampa Bay at New England Sunday night. Any Patriots worth starting? We'll tell you right after this. All right, I can't wait for this one. Sunday Night Football, Brady, Gronk back in New England. Tom Brady's top 3. Heard. Yeah, I know. He's number 1 for Dave. He's thrown 10 touchdown passes. How about this? The Buccaneers have rushed for 2 touchdowns this year. Who has scored those 2 rushing touchdowns?
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And
I know it.
Godwin.
Got it.
Yep. But so we won't spend time on Brady. Unless you just like Foxborough's kind of a tough place to play. They've done pretty well against quarterbacks here. We don't care, right? All Brady all the time.
Like I said, 68 yards away from history.
Yeah, so he's gonna. So that's all he needs.
I love chaos, so I will absolutely be cheering for the Patriots in this game. It'll be a lot of fun. But no, you're starting Tom Brady.
I don't think anyone other than Patriots fans are going to be cheering for the Patriots in this game. And
I just said I was.
South fan. What's that?
I just said I was.
Yeah, I know. That's you're a freak. It's Brady versus Belichick. Who the hell is rooting for Belichick?
Well, I would guess Patriots fans probably even so would like to see Brady play well, but their team win.
Yeah,
that's probably hard to do, but because of what the Patriots like, if this was like a legit offense versus the Bucs offense, you'd be like, okay, let's go. Let's see some fireworks. Let Brady go get his numbers and let our guy and our team go out and beat them. But the only way that they beat them is if Belichick throws something at Brady that he's never seen before, and they get thrown off their game, or he's just completely, thrown off his game because of the emotions and everything that goes along with it. I just can't see that happening.
And I've got a long list of people who are cheering for the Patriots. Panthers fans.
I said
Saints fans.
NFC South.
Rams fans.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, fine. Yeah, I think the Patriots just try to mess with Brady. Like they should let Mac Jones wear number 12, and they should just, I don't know, try to get in his head. It'll work. All right, Tampa Bay running backs. If Bernard doesn't play, does that make Fournette a start?
Yeah.
No. But close. He's a flex.
I like it. All right. If Leonard Fournette,
Bernard basically did nothing in week 2. He barely did anything in week 1. You know what you're getting from these guys. I don't think this is, hey, let's go back to Foxborough and run the football. They're not chasing who they are.
No, but he had 5 catches. Fournette had 5 catches.
Yeah, he had 10 PPR points in week 1 and 11 in week 2, or flip that. That's what you're looking at. If he scores, you get a better game.
Yeah. Okay.
I would just say like 25% of Brady's passes this year have gone to running backs. I don't think they're throwing the ball to Ronald Jones.
He's better than Jones.
No, but I think Fournette's probably getting 15% target share, and if Brady throws 35 passes, I think he's gonna be good if Gio doesn't play.
Okay, Fournette or Damian Harris.
Oh, Fournette.
Okay. Tampa Bay wide receivers. Jamie, what do we do? If Brown,
you start them all.
Start them all.
Yes, you have the 3 revenge games in this game.
Yeah, Brown. Yeah, he's gonna be real. Okay, we'll get into more Antonio Brown rankings. All right, fine. So let's say Antonio Brown plays, Gio doesn't. Brown or Fournette?
Brown.
I would play Fournette. I don't have. I have Evans and Godwin's ranked as starters, but I've got Brown quite a ways behind them.
This is. You got to assume that Brady's 8 touchdowns go to probably. Everybody's getting 1.
Yeah. So Gronkowski, this is actually a tough matchup. At least you go back to last year. They gave up the 6th fewest fantasy points. They faced Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, Andrews. They faced the best.
Have they ever faced Gronk?
They've never faced Gronk. Is there any hesitation on Gronk?
I'm going to guess that if it's in the 4th quarter and he hasn't scored yet, they're giving him carries. Like there's no chance they're leaving Gillette Stadium without a Gronk spike.
I wish there were a player prop for Gronkowski throwing a touchdown pass to Tom Brady.
There you go. That's another way that they're going to do it. There's something quirky. Bruce Arians is letting them do whatever they want. And I know I'm joking, but the Patriots defense is good. You're not benching Rob Gronkowski.
No, but the question is, would you start him over?
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Well, I don't think I'd start him over Andrews, but I do think it's quite likely one of Brown, Godwin, Evans, or Gronk is going to have a bad game.
Yeah.
Maybe two.
Week 1, week 2. Yeah. Right. Week 1, it was Evans. Week 2, it was Brown. Patriots, any Patriots that you are excited to start? We already talked about Damian Harris and our 60-second rankings disputes. I guess we can get into Jacoby Myers or the tight ends or something here. Anyone you're excited to start?
No. Myers.
Heath, how are you not saying Myers? I thought you were the Myers guy.
I mean, I've got him 34th, 33rd. Like he's a fine number 3. I'm not excited to start him.
I would start him over Beasley and Renfro just to tie in the PPR caliber players that we've talked about.
Okay. Most wide receivers have actually done really well against like Cooper.
They've given up the most production to wide receivers.
Oh, they have. How about that? The only one they did well against that was a surprise was Robert Woods.
It's just hard to have a big game without a touchdown.
Yeah, non-PPR, he's frustrating. But
Myers not
again, so is Beasley. If you're comparing the two, I think if I'm not mistaken, Myers' game last week is better than Beasley's best game so far this season.
What is more likely? Gronkowski throws or rushes for a touchdown, or Jacoby Myers scores?
Yeah, it's a go Myers one, but that's a fun one.
What do we got here? Oh, okay. These are props. To catch the record-breaking pass.
Beasley did outscore Myers last week.
He did.
Yeah.
Receiver. Look at these props. Player props here. Receiver to catch the record-breaking pass. Gronk is plus 275. Godwin plus 350. Evans 450. Let's see. Fournette plus 1,000. That might be.
Oh, please be Ronald Jones. That'd be funny.
Ronald Jones plus 1,800. Oh man. Yeah. I think I'd place my bet on Evans plus 450.
I think I'd go Brown plus 650. Just because it's better odds.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has any reason to think they would know.
Okay. You know what? If just going, yeah. All right. I like it.
Because it's not like you can even plan that out. What if somebody breaks a tackle and picks up 25 yards on a play you thought you were getting 10?
Yeah. All right. Let's go to our next game, Baltimore at Denver. By the way, Tampa Bay's DST is 2nd overall. Expecting a good game there. Baltimore at Denver. Stat of the game. Denver is one of the 12 U.S. cities to have teams from 4 major sports, according to urbanphoenix.com.
Can I make a request for all future Denver games?
Yeah.
In the stat of the game, just be conspiracy theories about Denver's airport.
Is that a thing?
Oh, it's a major thing.
Sure. I'll look into it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, a lot of sports teams in Denver. Everybody at home, see if you can think of the other 11 cities. All right, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. He's not top 5. He's closer to 10. Is that just because quarterback is loaded?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is going to presumably be a very low-scoring game.
Yeah, he's 8th for Jamie and Heath. He's 10th for Dave.
Hopefully Marquise Brown catches the ball.
So you got Justin Herbert ahead of Lamar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cousins or Lamar?
Lamar.
Lamar.
All right. Would you start a Baltimore running back?
I would not.
I would prefer not to.
Would you start
last week too?
Would you start a Baltimore wide receiver?
Marquise Brown.
I think I've got Brown as a number 3.
Let's see how much Jamie hates Tyson Williams after last week. Would you start Damian Harris or Tyson Williams?
Tyson Williams.
Broncos defense has been one of the best in football. They've allowed the fewest points, but they faced the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets. They're 3-0. This will be a step up in competition for sure, but their run defense does seem really, really good. So we'll give them that, although they face the Giants, Jets, and Jaguars. Marquise Brown or Jacoby Myers?
Brown.
Brown, but in PPR it's close.
Marquise Brown in PPR or Chuba Hubbard?
Hubbard.
Marquise Brown or a Falcons running back?
Brown in PPR.
I'll go Mike Davis.
Yeah, I don't know how much this matters to you. Again, consider the competition, but there have been 7 wide receivers who have had 6 or more targets against the Broncos, and that's kind of where Brown lives, 6 to 8, and only one of them has more than 65 yards. It was Sterling Shepard in week 1. Marvin Jones, 55 yards and a touchdown. Corey Davis, 41 yards on 10 targets. I guess we'll learn much more about Denver this week.
Them and the Panthers both. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mark Andrews, top 7 in both formats. You're going to start him. Teddy Bridgewater. So I know last week was really disappointing, but 19 of 25, 235 yards. That's not so bad. He just didn't score a touchdown against the Jets. But, like if he has to throw more in this game, and theoretically he would, you guys have him really low, like barely in the top 24. So not feeling sleeper appeal for Bridgewater?
No, I think he'll be okay in 2 quarterback or super flex leagues, but it's too deep a position to say you're streaming him over some of these other guys, and certainly not ahead of Carr or Cousins, who, were probably backups on your fantasy team or picked up at some point along the way. And this is his toughest matchup. I don't want to say he's going to completely fall on his face, but this Ravens defense is clearly a step up in competition.
Yeah, I think that the Ravens, like I see in the notes here, they're 19th against quarterbacks, but that's completely misleading. They've played Mahomes and an overtime game against Carr when he threw 56 passes.
And Jared Goff.
And Goff, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. Put it this way. Are there any Broncos that I think people are going to start Fant. So the Broncos running backs, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, how do you feel about them, Jamie?
I think that Sutton's a borderline starter. I don't want to judge him based on last week. I also don't want to overreact too much to what he did in week 2. But I would expect that this is the type of target share that you're going to expect from him when they're in a competitive game. So probably looking at somewhere between 6 and 10 targets. So I'd ballpark it at 8. And with the way that they were challenging down the field, so tougher competition, opportunity to make some plays. If I have him and I don't have a better option, I'm starting clearly. Patrick is a little bit tougher to trust, but again, I think the targets will be up. So borderline number 2, borderline number 3 receiver for each guy.
Marquise Brown or Cortland Sutton?
I'll give Brown the benefit of the doubt based on what I've seen so far.
That one's close enough that I have to look it up. I'll go Sutton.
So I cannot believe Denver's favored in this game, by the way. It started with Baltimore -1.
They're undefeated at home.
Now it's -1 for Denver. Yeah, look, Baltimore's been a little uninspiring this year. Okay, I mean they did beat the Chiefs. That was impressive, but CH fumbled. They barely beat the Lions.
You've got a run-heavy team with no running backs.
It's true, right? Noah Fant, top 8 in both formats. You guys like Fant or Andrews?
Andrews.
Okay, Fant or Goddard?
Fant.
Fant.
Fant or Logan Thomas?
Fant.
Which DST do you like better?
Fant.
Baltimore. Question.
Heath, the answer for you is Baltimore.
Baltimore, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely. I just updated those.
Okay, good. Pittsburgh at Green Bay. Green Bay's run defense has been awesome, but they will be without Tyler Lancaster most likely. He's a backup nose tackle for them, but he's on the reserve COVID list. And yeah, this is the stat of the game that you will probably ignore. I'll just sum it up like this. They've played 10 games now, haven't given up a carry to a running back of longer than 20 yards. Second longest was 16 yards, Trey Sermon last week. So I'm buying into their run defense. I don't know how big of a loss Lancaster would be. So Najee Harris, I guess you maybe, given how he has run.
I don't think 20-yard runs were never part of the game plan for Najee Harris in the first place.
But yeah, he could have a pretty low rush average again. So you're probably going to need that receiving production. I think you guys have him around 12th. Is Najee Harris just a slam dunk must start?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's harder in non-PPR than it is PPR because you expect him to get the catches at this point. It's not going to be the same level, clearly, if everybody's healthy. But I don't know which receivers are going to play for the Steelers. So,
yeah, if Juju and Deontay Johnson are both cleared, I will probably have Harris closer to like 14. But it's just hard to I just had to try to defend Mike Davis and Leonard Fournette as starting running backs. You're just going to probably start him. Yeah. I think it might be a terrible game, but you're going to start him.
You guys are not starting Ben Roethlisberger. He's outside your top 24. I think he's going to be a top. All right. Bold prediction. He finishes like 18th this week. Let's go.
What is Ben Roethlisberger for the season?
Oh, he's not 18th.
He's 15 points or less each week.
Yeah. He's got a 2.3% touchdown rate. That's horrible even for Ben Roethlisberger.
The only quarterbacks I have ranked behind Ben Roethlisberger are rookies. The only quarterbacks who have started every game and have scored fewer fantasy points than Ben Roethlisberger are rookies.
No, he sucks, but Green Bay's defense is terrible. It seems that way. At least
Tyrod Taylor has scored more fantasy points than Ben Roethlisberger this year.
2.3% touchdown rate, Heath. I thought that you'd like that stat.
Taylor Heineke has scored 16 more fantasy points than Ben Roethlisberger this year.
And that's more than Roethlisberger scored in any game. All right. So if all the wide receivers play, who would you start? How would you rank them for Pittsburgh?
Johnson, Juju, Claypool, and PPR. Johnson, Claypool, Juju, and non-PPR.
Agree completely. Johnson would be a low-end number 2, borderline number 2 in both formats for me. Juju and Claypool would be low-end number 3s.
All right, one thing I want to see with Claypool is I feel like he was on the left side of the field more often. Yes, in week 3, but I kind of feel like that's Deontay's side of the field. And that's where you want to be against Green Bay, because if you're on the right side of the field on offense, you're going up against Jair Alexander. So I'll take a look in week 2 where Claypool's targets came from. Mostly on the left, I guess. I don't know. You just want to be away from Jair Alexander. The Packers are easy. At least Adams and Jones are starts. Okay, so Aaron Rodgers. What are your expectations for Aaron Rodgers in this game?
Pain. I think he'll be a low-end starter.
So you guys, both of you have Carr over Rodgers?
No, I would start Carr. I would start Rodgers over Carr.
Yeah, I think I have Carr and Cousins both over Rodgers. I've got Rodgers at 14th, I believe.
How about Joe Burrow tonight or Aaron Rodgers?
Rodgers.
Rodgers.
Although, I did not realize that. Joe Burrow has scored more fantasy points than Aaron Rodgers this season.
No.
Yeah, but you throw out week 1.
Oh, right. Rodgers had 1 point in week 1. Yeah. 34 in week 2, 22 in week 3. This in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Pat Freiermuth or Robert Tonyan. You guys want to start either of these guys?
Yeah, can't wait. Not Freiermuth, but he would be more interesting if the receivers, but both receivers are out. And Tonyan, no. I mean, he's touchdown or bust. You know what you're getting.
So would you start the streaming guy, Dalton Schultz over Tonyan?
Yes.
Who else? Who are the other
Conklin?
Conklin, Evan Ingram or Tonyan?
Ingram for me.
All right. Anyone else? MVS if he plays?
No.
Okay. That's the Packers and the Steelers.
I want to see, though, also if TJ Watt plays. That's big.
Yeah, big deal for sure. So Kansas City at Philadelphia, Jamie, should I make this the bonanza?
Sure.
No, I wouldn't do that to you. Okay,
What do you
Jalen
learn
Hurts.
to me that I haven't done to myself?
Yeah.
You know, it's possible they would cancel each other out.
That's true. Yeah, could be a good thing. Kansas City at Philadelphia, the Chiefs give up the most yards per play. We'll see if Frank Clark plays this week. He's only played 1 game. They could really use him. And all right, here's your stat of the game. The Chiefs, bad defense, but especially against running backs. 5 yards per carry, 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. 5 running backs have already scored 10 or more PPR fantasy points in 3 games. 3 have scored 16 or more PPR fantasy points. A running back has gained 93 or more total yards in every game, all 3 games against the Chiefs. So, Heath, does Miles Sanders get back on track? You got to figure that they regret giving him 2 freaking carries last week. Start or sit Miles Sanders, and who would you start him over?
I've got him as a top 20 running back. I'd start him over Damian Harris, James Robinson, Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt. I would prefer to start Miles Sanders in this game than Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
All right. Jamie, Clyde or Miles?
I think I have them almost back-to-back. I like Clyde better, but Miles Sanders I think is still worth buying back into. I can't imagine a situation where they don't try and run the ball like most teams do against the Chiefs. And that's the correction, I think, early in the game that you see. So Sanders is still worth trusting.
I'm just going to say this for every game now, I guess, but Miles Sanders and Clyde Edwards-Helaire also back-to-back in fantasy points scored for the season. Sanders has scored 1 more point than Clyde.
Devontae Smith or one of the running backs, full PPR?
Both running backs.
Yeah.
Is there any wide receiver you're starting in this game other than Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Smith is still worth starting as a number 3 receiver.
Yeah, I've got him 34th. I'd start him over Claypool, assuming the Steelers assuming Deontay Johnson's back.
Would you start Devontae Smith or Chuba Hubbard? No, you're going to start Chuba Hubbard. Would you start Devontae Smith or Rams starting running back?
Rams running back.
Rams running back.
Devontae Smith or Cortland Sutton?
Sutton.
Super flex league, Devontae Smith or Ben Roethlisberger? Come on.
Roethlisberger.
How many points per pass touchdown?
Oh, he doesn't really do a lot of that anyway.
No, I start Roethlisberger.
6.
I'm just joking.
Okay. What else in this game? Tight ends for Philadelphia. Goddard. So now Goddard and Ertz have the same amount of targets, but Ertz had 7 last week to pull him even with Dallas Goddard. Is Goddard a start this week?
Borderline.
He's right in that Jared Cook range, although I did pick up Dalton Schultz in 2 different leagues. I didn't drop Goddard, but I am starting Schultz over Goddard currently.
Start Mahomes. Let's talk a little bit more about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Eagles' run defense was terrific first 2 weeks, horrible last week against Dallas. Maybe not having Brandon Graham had something to do with that. Could not have been everything. They were just getting beat at the line of scrimmage. And this is another good offensive line, but it's probably not Dallas in terms of that, physicality. But would you start Clyde or James Robinson?
Robinson.
I've got Robinson higher.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Leonard Fournette, PPR?
Clyde.
I'll go Fournette.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire or 49ers starting running back?
Clyde.
Okay. I think that pretty much concludes. Oh, Jalen Hurts is 5th for Jamie, 6th for Heath, 11th for Dave. So he's a starter. I don't know why Dave has him 11th. Not saying he's wrong. I'm guessing because if you just heard our recap podcast on Tuesday, Dave seemed a little more worried about Hurts than Jamie was. Okay, get back on track. Jalen Hurts. Houston at Buffalo. Stat of the game. So look, it's all about Brandon Cooks for Houston. So far, no wide receiver has more than 62 yards against the Bills. 5 wide receivers have had 7 to 10 targets, and none of them have had more than 62 yards. Now, Cooks has gotten a lot more than 7 to 10 targets the last 2 weeks, but this is a very, very tough matchup. So, Jamie, starter sit Brandon Cooks.
I'm still starting. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. It is a tough matchup. I'm going to guess he sees a lot of Tre'Davious White, but I think volume will matter here. Garbage time will matter here. And it's too difficult to get away from him until I see a bad performance yet. And so I'm gonna stick with him one more week as a number 2 receiver.
And there have been a lot of wide receivers that have scored 10-ish PPR points without a touchdown. So if Cooks does what they did and just scores a touchdown, then he'll be okay.
Touchdown's going to be tough. This obviously could get out of hand. I'm sure Cooks is the only Texan that you're considering here. And Josh Allen is either 1 or 2 for everybody. So let's talk about the Buffalo running backs. Which one do you prefer, and are they worth starting this week, Heath?
I don't want to start either of them because I don't feel a great deal of confidence about who's going to get the most carries this week. But I do think if Zach Moss has a bigger role again in week 4, then we can start to feel confident in him as a low-end number 2, high-end flex.
Jamie, if you're looking at, say, the Broncos running backs against Baltimore and Moss. Okay.
I like Moss this week. Yeah. I mean, I think you've seen now he's their goal line guy in a game that they're going to be favored. So I think he has an opportunity to score. They used him more in the passing game last week. He's got more playing time last week, so whatever the punishment or injury that he was dealing with in week 1, he's responded, and I think responded well. To me, Singletary is the type of running back that stinks, guy between the 20s that doesn't have a huge role in the passing game. So I would try to avoid him.
Would you start Corey Davis or Zach Moss?
I would start Zach Moss. I'd start Zach Moss over Fournette.
Over Fournette, okay. Corey Davis, Heath?
I would start Davis, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta talk about somebody in that Jets-Titans game. That's coming up next. Buffalo wide receivers. Stephon Diggs is a start. Who's your second favorite Bills wide receiver?
Beasley
and PPR, Sanders and none.
Beasley, Sanders, Zach Moss. Who's your fave?
Moss.
Beasley, Moss, Sanders.
Who gets the heart emoji? Dawson Knox is like 20th. Not buying into it yet. Texans have been really bad against tight ends. They give up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. Nobody's had an enormous game, but they, O'Shaughnessy had 48 yards. Harrison Bryant had 49. Tommy Tremble scored a rushing touchdown. Chris Manhertz caught a touchdown. I can't really sit here and tell you to start Dawson Knox. But you should start the Bills DST. They are number 1 across the board.
Did you do a stat of the game for this one?
No. Yes.
I have a stat of the game for this one.
No wide receiver with more than 62 yards against.
Oh, dang it.
What is it?
Excluding Trey Lance because he's only thrown 1 pass, Davis Mills leads this class of rookie quarterbacks in quarterback rating, touchdown percentage, and interception percentage so far this season.
That's horrible. That's really bad. I hate that. All right, Colts at Dolphins. Let's say the Dolphins have had a pretty tough schedule so far. They have faced 3 teams that are top 10 in yards per play allowed: Buffalo, New England, and Las Vegas. And they faced 2 of them with their backup quarterback. The Colts, 5th most yards per play. And here's your stat of the game. Yards per catch is weird in this game. The Colts allow the most yards per catch to wide receivers. The Dolphins, the 4th most. And I'm pretty sure the Dolphins were worst, last in that category in 2020. I don't know what that is. The Colts absolutely suck against wide receivers. I don't know do we know what Xavier Rhodes' status is? Did he practice? We got to keep an eye on that. They got a very beat up secondary. So we'll come back to that in a little bit with Waddle and all that. But let's start with the Colts running backs. We're sitting Carson Wentz, Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines. Jamie, break it down. Big games, average games, must starts. What do you think about Taylor and Hines?
I think you're starting Taylor, but I don't think it's a slam dunk number 1 running back anymore. I think he's more of in the number 2 range after what we've seen, and probably more in the number 2 range in a lot of people's minds for his production so far, non-football related. It's been frustrating, and no Quentin Nelson's gonna be hard for him. But this run defense from Miami, the problem is that what we've seen from them is when they've been on the field so much is they've been tired. So I think that's what helped Peyton Barber. It helped Zach Moss with the touchdowns. They had a lot of short fields against Buffalo. So I'd be a little bit nervous about John Taylor, so I wouldn't play him in daily. Nyheim Hines, I hope it's not the roller coaster of 1 good game, 1 bad game, 1 good game, 1 bad game, and that's what we have so far through 3. But the Dolphins, I think, are top 7 in most receptions allowed to running back. They're one of 7 teams that have allowed 20-plus receptions to running backs, and so that's where Hines, I think, is going to have to benefit. So in PPR, he's an okay flex play, but not, again, a slam dunk either way. I just hate the Colts across the board in this game because I do think that Michael Pittman's going to struggle with the secondary, so he may get his targets up, but this is a get-right game for the Dolphins.
They have allowed 16 to 18 PPR fantasy points to a wide receiver in every game, and they were Aguilar, Diggs, and Renfro. Do you think Pittman can get there? And I mentioned they're not good at yards per catch. No, you don't think so? 16 PPR? Okay. Heath, are you excited about Taylor this week? Heath, Jamie's not super excited about anyone.
I think I am more excited about the Colts across the board than Jamie, but you're starting Jonathan Taylor. I don't know that we really need to discuss it that much.
Sure.
The way Pittman's got targets the past couple of weeks, I'm probably just going to start him. I mean, the Colts haven't exactly had the easiest start to the year with Russell Wilson and the world beater Rams. Now, they laid an egg against the Titans last week, but I'm not sure who it's more likely to be a get-right game for, the Colts or the Dolphins. I thought coming into the year, the Colts were better than the Dolphins.
I think Jacoby Brissett is really not good. Sorry.
Yeah, I would have said if the Colts are healthy, they're better than the Dolphins too. They're just not healthy.
But they're healthy at quarterback. They're healthy-ish at quarterback.
Well, I don't think this is play the under. I mean, this isn't a high-scoring game for Miami. I don't mean get-right game from the Dolphins from an offense perspective. I think just from a team perspective, like they get a win in this game.
Bonanza. All right, sit Brissett.
Please, this would be a great place to use
it. Myles Gaskin or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Clyde.
I'll go Gaskin and PPR.
Myles Gaskin or Nyheim Hines?
Gaskin.
Myles Gaskin or Jalen Waddle and his 7 yards per catch? 7.6.
Gaskin, but Waddle I think is still worth playing.
Yeah, I've got they're both good.
Okay.
Flexish, guys.
Waddle or hold on. Waddle or wait, damn it. Pittman.
Man.
Waddle.
All right. Not starting Parker or Fuller if he plays.
No.
Nope.
If you want to hear about Mike Gesicki, please rewind to the 60-second rankings disputes. And I'm sorry to save this one for last. Tennessee is at the Jets. Underrated stat of the game.
Tennessee at the Jets.
Michael Carter had 7 more touches than Ty Johnson in week 3. So I know it doesn't really matter, but it seems like every week he's taking a little bit more of that running back role.
Make sure he's not been dropped in your leagues. I found him on the waiver wire in a couple of places. I still think he's a good stash.
I'll check his roster percentage. Okay, are we starting any Tennessee? Are we starting anyone in this game other than Derrick Henry?
In this game, yeah, Corey Davis, number 3 receiver.
And if Julio plays, I would start Julio as a number 3 receiver.
Yes.
Yeah, no, right. Obviously, if AJ Brown miraculously or Julio Jones plays, you start them. But assuming they are out, I was surprised that you guys have Tannehill where you have him.
We don't have Julio ranked out.
I haven't adjusted my rankings since Tuesday night either, so there'll be a dropping of Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, Michael Carter, by the way, 78% rostered, so keep an eye on that. Corey Davis, Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle. Who's the best of that group?
Waddle in PPR, Davis and none.
Pittman.
Anything else? I asked you this an hour ago, but in case people have forgotten, take a flyer on a Titans wide receiver. Who would it be? Jamie, I just want to hear you pronounce the name. That's all.
Oh, Nick Westbrook. That's what he is in our database.
Akina Matata.
Akina Matata. All right, perfect. Jets actually, they see the second fewest wide receiver targets in the NFL. Teams are not really throwing a lot on the Jets.
I'm sure that'll change with the Titans.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is like just made for, there he is, Nick Westbrook. Sure, we'll keep it at that. All right, you know how this game is going to play out. Tennessee's DST, they are 74% roster now, but they have the Jets this week, and then they have the Jaguars next week. So you might be able to keep them for 2 weeks, and they are top. Oh, wait a second. Let me see. Is this ranking still right for Tennessee's DST? Let me just refresh the rankings page. They are 4th for Jamie, 3rd for Dave, and 24th for Heath.
They're really bad.
They are. That's true. You gonna keep them there, 24th?
I'm not. They will not be in my top 12. So, like, they might move up to 15th if that would make you feel better.
It would. Will you do that for me? All right, everybody, we're out of here. That's starter sit for the AFC home games. We'll have 7 NFC home games and a recap of the Jaguars and the Bengals. Who covers? Let me get the spread.
16th.
7.5. Oh, thank you, Heath. 7.5 Bengals. Who covers?
Bengals.
The Bengals and the under.
46 is the under. Bengals and the under. Okay. I agree. Bonanza. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We will talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today. Enjoy some football.